This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word SHOW to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word SHOW, SHOW, to 33777. Text SHOW to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
The left is melting down today, and it is hilarious to watch. It is a great day for this country, for the free market, for businesses and individuals, and the commies and the progressives are very, very angry about it. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast. Get the four things to know in the afternoon. The Trump administration is repealing an Obama-era endangerment finding. Now, I got to set the stage for you because this is kind of wonky, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but you got to know the basics. Back in 2007, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the regulation of carbon dioxide did not fall under the Clean Air Act. Congress did not specify it, and in order for the EPA to regulate it, there must be an endangerment finding. Fast forward to 2009. One of the very first things the Obama administration did as a promise to the left and the environmental movement, once Obama got into office in 2009, was to determine an endangerment finding, concluding that there are 6 greenhouse gases that pose a threat to public health and welfare. The finding allowed the Environmental Protection Agency to start deploying climate rules relating to methane, carbon dioxide, and the like. And what they did is they drove up the regulatory cost on businesses that now had to measure, report, certify, and comply with emission standards for motor vehicles and for other things. Now, there are separate rules that apply to power companies and emissions from coal-burning plants and the like, but those could be rolled back too. But this in particular drove up the cost on auto manufacturers. You know, for example, the stupid auto stop-start button in your vehicle. It causes wear and tear on your engine. I hate it. Every time I get in my car, I hit the button. Typically they all have, it looks like the Avenger symbol. It's an A with a arrow wrapped around it as a almost complete circle. And your car, when you come to a stoplight, the engine turns off. You got to take your foot off the brake to start it back up. And it can cause all sorts of problems for you and your vehicle. But it was done by vehicle manufacturers to comply with regulations on fuel efficiency that were related to the endangerment finding. Our lives have been inconvenienced by the environmentalists on this stuff for some time. And today, the Trump administration has decided to roll it back. Now, undoubtedly, Judge Boasberg or someone's going to enjoin it, but here's the thing. Erickson, you say. How are they doing this just now? Why didn't they do it when they first came into office? Y'all, they began laying the groundwork for this in 2022 out of power. Russ Vought. God bless Russ Vought. Russ Vought and Jeff Clark, lawyer who had been involved in the Trump administration and the first time who had been harassed by the Biden administration, they began developing a plan to roll back the endangerment finding. There were some others as well, Mandy Gunascara and Jonathan Brightbill, conservative lawyers who have long fought climate initiatives. Together, they have done the work. And one of the things that the Trump administration has known from the get-go is that if they rushed it, the left would be able to run to Judge Boasberg or someone and say, well, I mean, they rushed this. It's not legitimate. They did it so quickly. Who's to say it's a legitimate finding? So now they're working their way through it, and they're going to roll it back. This is a very big deal. It will erase limits on greenhouse gas emission regulations from cars, ultimately to power plants and also industries. It is a huge, huge change in federal policy. Let me read for you a key paragraph here from the New York Times, which is very, very upset about this. Unlike the swings in federal policy that have become routine when administrations change hands, getting rid of the endangerment finding could hamstring any future administration's efforts to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. We are pretty close to total victory, says Myron Ebel, who helped the first Trump administration set up its operations of the EPA. Mr. Ebel said that dozens of conservative activists, lawyers, scientists, and others who have worked for years to prepare the case against the endangerment finding. No amount of outside public support would have done anything if there hadn't been these four people, Russ, Jeff, John, and Mandy. When the EPA issued the endangerment finding under President Obama, it offered a mountain of peer-reviewed scientific evidence. In more than 200 pages, the agency detailed how increasingly severe heat waves, storms, and droughts were expected to contribute to disease and death. Conservative groups fought to discredit the science. They lost legal challenges as public concerns shifted. This time, it doesn't matter. They've done their homework. I saw someone this morning on social media say that because the endangerment finding is going away, we're going to have more droughts and hurricanes and storms, and we're all going to die. The hysteria from the left on this. Anyone have a guess on the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Anybody? I got it wrong, by the way. I got it wrong. It is not 4% of the atmosphere. It is not 0.4% of the atmosphere. It is 0.04% of the atmosphere. 0.042% of the atmosphere at most. But the left used the endangerment finding to spread the hands of the government across far-reaching applications and far-reaching industries and businesses to punish them in the name of the Green New Deal. The left, I've got to tell you, the overreach of the left on this stuff has been absurd to watch. And the fact that they go to the World Economic Forum, and they're very, very, very open in the World Economic Forum about wanting to use things like the endangerment finding to control us. I mentioned yesterday how environmentalists are the great new bad guy in TV and film. And they are. Yesterday, we had the story of the philosopher from New York University who actually advocates infecting humanity with the Lone Star tick so that we can't eat beef anymore. These are the ideas the environmentalists come up with, and so much of it they're able to come up with because of the endangerment finding. They're able to find ways to regulate and impose their will on you and me and ruin American businesses. It's not a coincidence the communists today are upset about this. The actual American communists, not the hyperbole communists, the leftist communists, no, the actual Communist Party, they're upset about this. What's very funny is that they're out with a report today. The Chinese are now going to require reporting on carbon emissions from businesses. Oh, China's better than us. Isn't it notable how China's always better than us when it comes to some left-wing interest? I want to play for you audio. This is the CEO of the Institute for Sustainability Leadership, Lindsay Hooper, who was at the World Economic Forum. Listen to this.
When we talk about capital, we tend to think only about financial capital, about cash, financial assets, but we know that's not the only value on which our economies depend. We know that every aspect of every part of the economy is fundamentally dependent on nature, as you highlighted. The air that we breathe, the water we drink, the soil, the oceans that we need for the food that we need to consume, the minerals that we need as inputs to technology and to infrastructure. And without these forms of value, these forms of natural capital, we won't have economies. They are the fundamental building blocks of our economies. But the ways, as you said, the ways in which we have grown our economies, our models of economic development, have been incredibly successful for global prosperity. But the unintended consequences of the current models of growth are simply not sustainable on a finite planet. The amount of resource that we are drawing into our economies, Earth's resources, and the amount of pollution and waste that we're pumping out, whether that's through greenhouse gas emissions, whether that's sewage into our water, whether it's plastics into the ocean, is beyond the Earth's carrying capacity. And we know that that's leading, as you said, to very significant direct impacts for society, but very significant financial costs for the economy. You can look at that as you have and calculate that at a macro level. But the way that that's showing up as we're breaching these boundaries and breaching these limits and undermining nature is showing up in very practical ways that are showing up for financial risk for institutions. Lack of water is leading to disruption of operations, of supply chains where water is needed as an essential input for manufacturing or power production. The degradation of soil is leading to reduced agricultural yields. The decline of pollinator species is also having an impact on agriculture. So that's leading to direct financial risks for organizations, for businesses, and ultimately for investors. And as you said, ultimately the reason for this is at the moment the way that decisions are made on an everyday level within businesses and financial institutions is because we're looking only at financial data, financial metrics that are not factoring in nature. Nature is treated within the economy as though it's unlimited and predominantly as though it's free. And the risks and harms are simply not costed in financial terms. We can cost them at a macro level. They're not costed into day-to-day decision-making. And the result is, as a consequence, we've put all of our economies at fundamental risk. We can't do business on a dead planet. If we're going to protect natural systems, one of the solutions is to bring nature onto the balance sheet, to bring nature into the ways that decisions are made within business, to allocate a value to it and to bring it into accounting and financial mechanisms.
You got that? Now, for those of you who got bored by the sleepy British accent there, what she's essentially saying is there's a value to every breath you take. What is the oxygen worth in your lungs? You could be taxed on the air you breathe because you are consuming environmental resources. And when you breathe in the oxygen from the air, what do you exhale? Basic biology here. When you exhale carbon dioxide. You could be taxed on the carbon dioxide you exhale. With the endangerment finding that's going away. You see where the left is headed with this stuff. I mean, this woman's very, very open about this. She believes the environment is finite. Never mind, you cut down a tree, it'll grow back. You cut your grass continues to grow. The finite resources, that's the language of the Malthusians who continue to predominate environmentalism, even though they continue to be wrong. And that is where the endangerment finding ultimately gets, the ability to tax Americans on their consumption of the nature around them. They've started with cars, but you hear them very openly of where they want to head with this. By the Trump administration getting rid of this, it becomes a problem to bring it back. Why? Because they can say it's an error and roll it back, and the next time they want to try to bring it back, well, they're going to have to overcome the ways the Trump administration got rid of it. They can't just say, bygones, we're putting it back. They got to go through an entire regulatory process again to bring it back. And then companies can open themselves, can sue and say, wait a second, they rolled it back. We made our business decisions based on the rollback. You've got to grandfather us in now based on the regulatory structure. It becomes hard to undo what the Trump administration is doing the way they are undoing it, in large part as well because you now have the major questions doctrine in the Supreme Court, that it is a major question. If the Trump administration is rolling it back, and one of their reasons is this is actually a major question for Congress to decide, that's a signal to the Supreme Court that, hey, Congress is going to have to act on this, and Congress has failed 5 times to do so, which is why environmentalist heads are exploding today. This episode is brought to you by Glorify, the #1 Christian daily devotion app. Look, I have struggled forever, including this very year, doing a daily devotion, trying to focus on God's Word. That's why I teach Sunday school, because I know I've got to be in the Word every week studying. And the Glorify app is a great way for you to stay focused on your relationship with God. Just 5 minutes in the car, 10 minutes on a walk, a moment before the day gets out of control. Millions of people use Glorify, and I completely understand why. It's scripture and truth when you need it. And right now, you can get full access to Glorify for just $29.99 the entire year. That's Glorify's lowest price ever. When you download the Glorify app now at glorify-app.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Feel closer to God this year with Glorify. Get full access all year for $29.99 at glorify-app.com/Eric. That's glorify-app.com/Eric. Hello, America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I wish to read you something from CNBC, not exactly a fringe conservative website here. CNBC, the business channel, this from their website, quote, President Donald Trump, in a call 2 decades ago to a Florida police chief, bashed his former friend Jeffrey Epstein and called Epstein's procurer, Ghislaine Maxwell, evil. The now retired cop recounted to FBI agents in 2019, according to a document released by the Department of Justice. Trump called the then Palm Beach police chief Michael Reeder to tell him, thank goodness you are stopping Epstein. Everyone has known he's been doing this. Reeder told the FBI in 2019, according to an FBI document known as a 302. Reeder's name is redacted from the 302, but the document identifies the interview subject as the person who had been Palm Beach's police chief at the time of the department's investigation of Epstein, and that was Reeder. So in other words, Donald Trump is one of the people who confirmed to the police 2 decades ago that Epstein and Maxwell were bad news, and the left now wants you to pay no attention to the story, pay no attention to it, that they want to throw in all sorts of other stuff about Donald Trump there. They do not want you to know that 2 decades ago he reached out to the police and told them Epstein and Maxwell were quote-unquote evil, in the words of Donald Trump, to the police chief who he reached out to. Meanwhile, the left is standing by Catherine Rumler, who was Obama's general counsel and now works at Goldman Sachs, and all the other Democrats, including Stacey Plaskett, who is a Democrat from the Virgin Islands in Congress. No effort by the Democrats to oust her. Let me tell you about Renai, my tankless water heater. You can go to talkingtankless.com and get the details on them. There's a factory just north of me in Griffin, Georgia, where they produce these things, and they are about the size of a carry-on suitcase, and they can get rid of your water heater and use the tankless water heater from Renai. The tankless water heater never runs out of hot water. You don't have to fill it with a bunch of water ahead of time like you do with your tank. It's not going to flood your house if something goes wrong. You know, we had this with one of our water tanks, which is why we went to the Renai tankless water heater, because the water tank malfunctioned and flooded underneath our house. You're not going to get that with the tankless water heater. The Renai tankless water heaters, you get hot water forever. And, you know, our power bill went down when we got rid of our tank of a water heater. So you can check them out at talkingtankless.com. They are very reasonably priced, and they will keep you in great supply of hot water. My kids no longer fight over the hot water. Talkingtankless.com. Ditch your tank of a water heater. Go to a tankless water heater from Renai. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, and I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you. Now, we must talk about an old topic of mine because it just keeps coming up. And it is something the left claims to have thoroughly discredited, which they never have actually discredited. You know, this is actually something. I got an email yesterday where I was talking about how Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, they're now starting to lead the nation in reading and math. Mississippi, number one in math in the United States for elementary school right now. And those numbers are starting to carry over into middle school and high school. And they've gone to old school math and old school phonics teaching. They're ditching Common Core Singapore math. Those of you in schools, in fact, a buddy of mine reached out to me today, said he's moving his kid to a classical Christian school, and they've embraced Singapore math. I was like, get out now, or just be prepared. Now, in fairness, you know, Hillsdale College, they love Singapore math. They've been pushing Singapore math. I like old school math. My kids go to a school that has old school math, like the math of the 19th and early 20th century, where you got to memorize a lot and you got to work problems over and over and over and over. And my kids are head and shoulders above the kids that are doing Singapore math. And it's kind of wild when my kids go off to these other groups and there's math involved. The kids from the other schools have no clue what they're doing. And mine are like, this is kind of basic stuff. The old school tried and true methods. But the Singapore math, my gosh, people love the Singapore math stuff. And it's not working well long term. Neither is all the fancy reading and stuff. Go to the old school stuff. The old school stuff works. Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee are proven. And the problem is you say Mississippi and a lot of people are like, Mississippi, really? Yes, Mississippi is kicking your butts. So embrace them. Stop being arrogant. They have figured out what works, and it's going to pay dividends for that state. By the way, you know what they found is that kids with improved literacy and math skills are less likely to have out-of-wedlock pregnancies, less likely to be on welfare, less likely to go to jail. Mississippi is transforming the entire state by making kids smart. Other states are going to have problems. But the left has tried to discredit the Mississippi experiment. They've tried to say it's not true, the data is rigged, and they do this every time. It's like they claim settled science on transgenderism, and now you got the American Medical Association walking it back. The left has also tried to do the same thing with the broken window theory of crime, claiming it's not true, claiming the data doesn't add up. Actually, you know, we're seeing this in El Salvador. You can actually incarcerate your way out of crime. The left thinks it's cruel. But there are bad people who need to be placed in prison. And some of them need to be kept there for a long time. The broken window theory of crime is very simple. If you see a building with a broken window, and the broken window stays broken for a while, you know and I know that building has no one there. The homeless people know it, and they move in. The criminal underground knows it, and they start their drug trade in the building. The human traffickers know it, and they bring their gangs in, and they start trafficking out of the building, the abandoned building, all because of the broken window. So if you as a code enforcement officer enforce fixing the broken window, the small thing, you've kept the homeless out, the drug dealers out, the human traffickers out, the gangs out, all of that. You've kept the big crimes out by focusing on the small things. It's the broken window theory of crime, and it works. Rudy Giuliani, very successful in New York with it. Michael Bloomberg, when he was mayor of New York, focused on the broken window theory of crime. When he left, Bill de Blasio came in and said, you know what, that's garbage, nonsense. The consensus is it's not true. And crimes exploded in New York City as a result. San Francisco went so far to the left, they've started to swing back right. Now, that doesn't mean they're becoming conservative. They're just not wackadoo progressives in many cases anymore. Teachers' unions are, but most of society in San Francisco is increasingly realizing they went too far left. And they have rediscovered the broken window theory of crime. BART is the San Francisco Transit Authority. Why do they call it BART? What is it? The Bay Area Rapid Transit? Yes, Bay Area Rapid Transit. BART serves 50 stations along 6 routes, covers 131 miles of territory. It is their metro system. And you know what the fine people of San Francisco finally started doing? They put in new barriers to get into BART. For a while there, the progressives who ran San Francisco decided, you know what, we're just going to let people get in. And the gate jumpers could jump the gates. Eventually, they got rid of the gates, just had little turnstiles, and you could hop over if you wanted. And they have now put in gates that stop the gate jumping. Do you know what has happened? Maintenance costs for the stations, for the BART stations, have gone to almost zero. You understand this? Well, you understand what I'm saying. In the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, they've embraced the broken window theory of crime. And they've decided now to prohibit the small thing of gate jumping that for years was a regular fixture in San Francisco. And in the process, they've discovered that their maintenance costs and their cleaning costs have dropped to almost zero. Their cleaning costs. They've been able to reopen restrooms in the BART station. You know, in New York, they've closed all the bathrooms. In San Francisco, they're starting to reopen the bathrooms because they've discovered that people who are paying to use rapid transit are actually people who have somewhere to go, and they're not there to vandalize. They're not there to sleep. They're not there to defecate. They're not there to use drugs. They're not there for any of that stuff. So by enforcing the basics of a fare, the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit System has cleaned itself up and lowered its maintenance and cleaning costs to almost zero. While San Francisco is doing that, New York is headed in the opposite direction. Crime is up on the New York subway. Vandalism is up. Petty theft is up. They've started closing the restrooms in the subway stations of New York so that you can't get in there because you might get raped or stabbed or murdered or step on a needle. It's wild to watch the rediscovery of basic common sense. And it's you see this stuff all over the country. When you let your standards go and you stop enforcing the basics, you get the big stuff. This is from Bethesda, Maryland. Neighbors in a quiet Washington, D.C. suburb have watched what many feel is surreal. A squatting takeover of a $2.3 million home unfolding not on television but outside their own front doors. The property at the center of the controversy has been tied to Tamika Good and her partner Corey Pollard, whom neighbors allege unlawfully occupied a bank-owned home in Bethesda. Videos posted to social media added to the friction, including one TikTok and Instagram clip attributed to Good that included the line, quote, "You can't be doing regular people blankety blank poop." The purported squatting incident took a dramatic turn last Monday. Less than 2 weeks of being incarcerated, Tamika Good is back in the house. Court records show Good and Pollard were charged last July with trespassing and fourth-degree burglary based on filings initiated by a 19-year-old college student who lives with his parents next door to the disputed home. Good's attorney told Spotlight on Maryland that there are loopholes in the system that people do take advantage of, but loopholes are loopholes. He added that his client followed the orders of event to take residency inside the property. That's right. They're claiming they have squatter rights. They put the woman in jail for 2 weeks for squatting in a house she doesn't own. She got out of jail and promptly went right back to the house. The judge found her guilty on all charges and sentenced her to a 90-day prison term to be served immediately, and said she had some demented thoughts to justify the squatting. She was released after 11 days in the prison, posted a $5,000 cash appeal bond, retained an attorney, and says there are loopholes, and she's moved back in to the residence. When asked what specific squatters' rights she has, the lawyer says, well, there aren't really squatters' rights. There are rights known as squatters' rights, and she's taking advantage of those. And then there's the bizarre case in Louisville, Kentucky. In Louisville, Kentucky, a 20-year-old man was sentenced to 65 years in prison. His name is Christopher Thompson. Let me read you part of the transcript. Off the record, the defendant was speaking to Miss John Janin and stated, I will see you in 20 years, B-word. That would be the victim that he forced into her car. He raped her in the car, made her drive to an ATM and empty out her bank accounts, and then raped her again. On the record in front of the entire court, he stated words I can't repeat, F y'all kids, F y'all's dead loved ones, and then speaking directly to the court, addressed the judge, eat my D word, B word, I'm going to pop your A word and shove rape the judge, essentially. Can't read the words here, folks. That's how bad it was. He said that in court to the judge, told the judge he would rape the judge. Said he didn't care about his sentence. So what did the judge do? Judge Tracy Davis, Jefferson County, Kentucky. That'd be Louisville, Kentucky. What did the judge do?
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male that has been, experienced this society, etc., and you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation. This is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
You got that? The jury heard all of the evidence, sentenced the judge, or sentenced the defendant, Christopher Thompson, to 65 years in prison. And the judge reduced it to 30 years, and he can get out in less than 20. And the defendant's response to having his prison sentence cut from 65 years to 30 years with the possibility of getting out in less than 20 years was to tell the judge to eat his D word, that he would be raping her, and that he would see the woman he raped, bled her bank account dry, and raped again, would see her in 20 years. And the judge thinks this is fine. because he's a poor black boy from a hard society that just didn't give him a chance because, we're a systemically racist nation. You want to know why people think Louisville is increasingly not a safe place to go? Here's you an example. The broken window theory of crime at work. You let things like this slide, you're going to have problems. The moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is that yes, we can incarcerate ourselves out of the problem. Remember in Washington, D.C., it turned out that something like 90% of the crime was being caused by less than 300 individuals in the District of Columbia who were repeatedly going to court and getting out, and going to court and getting out, and going to court and getting out, and going to jail and getting out, going to jail and getting out. The Trump administration brought in the National Guard. They rounded them up. They charged them with federal crimes, not local crimes. Why? Because the woke district attorney was refusing to punish these young men, mostly, who were committing the crimes because we're a systemically racist nation. They had a hard life. Crime in D.C. has bottomed out. Same thing in New Orleans. Same thing in Memphis. In fact, I saw a guy the other day who I follow in Memphis who said he was remarking about how clean his streets are now in his neighborhood because vagrancy has disappeared, among other things. When you forget the basics of governance, society breaks down. And the basics of government on crime and punishment is real simple. You take the small things seriously, the big things never get a chance to fester. If you don't take the small things seriously, the big things come at you hard. And progressive cities like San Francisco are starting to learn that, as progressive cities like New York are beginning to forget that. And we're going to watch the roles reverse coast to coast as New York forgets the broken window theory and San Francisco re-embraces it, and other cities in between can watch and learn. This hour of the program brought to you by Van Allen Golf, ALLEN, vanallengolf.com. Check them out on YouTube, or rather Instagram at Van Allen Golf. You can text golf to 33777. Fantastic golf equipment, vanallengolf.com. I use their putter. It's phenomenal. You can too. You got somebody who's into golf? Check out vanallengolf.com. Folks, I want to play you this clip. Saw it on Instagram. Boomer Esiason on his sports talk show talking about the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl by playing in California. It cost the players money.
For winning the Super Bowl, the winning team, each player gets $178,000. In other words, the Super Bowl isn't a part of their salary. And because the game was played in California, and California has a jock tax, and they look at duty days. So each team spends 7 days in the state of California. So those are 7 duty days, and they pierce your regular salary at 3.5%. So he has to pay, when you take into account he got the $178,000 plus his overall salary, he has to pay the state of California for spending 7 days there $249,000.
You got that? Plus, they play other games in California. It all adds up. You get punished by playing sports in California. They've got the Super Bowl in California next year. Don't be surprised if they never have it in California again. The players get fed up with it. Now, I got to move on. Before I do, I need to tell you guys about Vision Computers, because they would love to build you a new computer. You're buying a computer, you upgrading a computer, Vision Computers can take care of you at visioncomputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. 404-COMPUTE. Give them a call today. They'll build you a computer, but they can also be your managed IT service. If you're a small business, if you're in the gig economy, you need someone helping you with your computer because you can't miss downtime, you get a special phone number from Vision Computers. When you call them, they answer in 15 seconds or less. A human being does, not an AI chatbot. And they can help you. They can even remote into your computer. And they work with people in all 50 states. They can actually save your company money by taking over your managed IT services, where you're not working with AI chatbots. You're actually working with human beings. Call them at 404-COMPUTE today. Anybody nationwide. And by the way, if you build a computer with Vision Computers, this managed IT service comes free with the computer. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Tell them Eric sent you. You might even save a little more money. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com.